All right, here now with more. Former senior advisor to President Trump, Stephen Miller, Fox News contributor Charlie Hurt. All right, let's start with Iowa. Latest polls out of New Hampshire. The thing I worry about Steve Miller in New Hampshire is they have this open primary provision that people can switch affiliations. Democrats can vote, say they're independent, switch their affiliation, vote in the Republican primary, and at least 4,000 up to now have done that. Okay, Trump is leading in most polls by double digits. Does that have a big impact on this race on Tuesday?
Well, it really is quite amazing, Sean, that there's still the ability of Democrats to determine the outcome of a presidential primary in New Hampshire. But Republican voters deeply resent the other party trying to determine their nominee, trying to switch over and vote for Nikki Haley over Donald Trump. I believe there will be a massive backlash effect to this effort to court Democrat voters to interfere in the primary. And ultimately, that backlash effect will drive President Trump's numbers even higher, particularly because after that massive, historic win in Iowa, twice anything that's ever happened in America before, he has unified the party behind him. You heard that incredible presentation from Senator Rubio about why he's endorsing President Trump. And I expect that his numbers in New Hampshire in the weeks ahead are just going to keep going, or the days ahead, I should say, are going to keep going up and up.
Yeah, and I want to get your take on this, Charlie, because they want to extend out the Republican primary as long as possible in the hopes that Republicans, spend all this money going after each other. I just don't like the system. I mean, even Governor Sununu, who's supporting Nikki Haley, fine for him. Even he acknowledged to Neil Cavuto in an interview that, he doesn't like this either. And that the idea that some of these people would try to muddy the waters and play games like this in his state and then have every intention of voting for the Democrat, they have no business being in the Republican primary.
Well, certainly every Republican who's trying to keep this going needs to be aware that the longer it keeps going, the longer we have this internal fight as opposed to Donald Trump turning his focus on fighting Joe Biden and getting Joe Biden out of the White House. But I think it's really interesting here. We saw the effort by Democrats, and this is an old, a tactic that both parties have tried over the years, where you have savvy Democrat voters in Iowa participate in the Republican caucuses, trying to sow chaos in the other party. But this is what's sort of interesting, and I think a lot of people have sort of glossed over, is usually or always when that happens, the Democrats are trying to get the weakest candidate elected, which I think is really interesting here. And we're going to see it again in New Hampshire, where Democrats play in the Republican primary or the Republican caucus in an effort to get the weakest candidate to get the nomination. And in this case, that's Nikki Haley. And I think it's really interesting that Democrats seem to have a better grasp of the real truth here, which is Donald Trump is the most formidable candidate who could face Joe Biden in November. He can prosecute the case against Joe Biden better than anybody, and Democrats are terrified of facing Donald Trump, not only because it's going to be 4 more years of Donald Trump, but also because they realize he is the most formidable candidate, and so that's why they're getting in, trying to cross over and supporting Nikki Haley in the primary.
Yeah, that's why they're saying, oh, democracy in peril. That's one of their big fear tactics. But yet they're the party that's trying to keep Donald Trump off ballots in states. How ironic. And they're the ones that want to pile on more criminal charges, as many as possible, and weaponize our justice system. I mean, it's a joke. I'll give you the last word quickly, both of you, starting with Steve.
This election is absolutely a referendum on the survival of American democracy. But the Grim Reaper for American democracy, and by the way, he's looking more and more like the Grim Reaper visually, is Joe Biden. The Democratic Party is using the legal system to try to imprison President Trump, to try to bankrupt President Trump, to try to take away the voices of the American people, to censor, to blacklist, to banish, to jail. It is fascism. It is authoritarianism. If you want to save American democracy in 2024, then your only hope and prayer is to vote for Donald Trump.
You know, they can't run on one thing,
Stephen is
Charlie.
exactly right
Are you
about
better
this.
off than you were 4 years ago? Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, exactly. And Stephen is exactly right about this. If Democrats get away with these tactics and win an election doing this, they will never use any other tactics to win an election.
They can't run on a positive record because they don't have one.
Right.
It really is that simple.
Amen.
So it's going to be negative the entire time, scare people, the usual tactics, and that's all they're going to want to talk about. And Joe will probably hide in the basement. I don't know which basement, Delaware, the White House. He'll be in some basement. All right, thank you both. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.